Welcome to the channel Reveal Penny USA, and let me tell you, what you are about to discover today is going to absolutely shake you to your core, because right now, as you are watching this video, there is a very real chance that somewhere in your home, tucked inside an old jar, rattling around in a dusty drawer, or sitting completely unnoticed in a coin collection you inherited years ago, there is a Washington quarter that collectors and auction houses would pay an almost unimaginable amount of money to get their hands on. And we are not talking about a few $100s, we are not talking about a few $1,000s, we are talking about a coin that has been valued at a staggering, jaw-dropping, life-changing $80 million, and that coin is the 1997 Washington quarter, a coin that on the surface looks so ordinary, so everyday, so completely unremarkable that most people would drop it into a vending machine without a second thought, but the collectors who know what to look for, the experts who have dedicated their entire lives to studying United States coinage, they know that this particular quarter from this particular year struck at the Philadelphia Mint is so much more than just 25 cents, it is a piece of American numismatic history, it is a treasure hiding in plain sight, and today we are going to pull back the curtain on everything that makes this coin so extraordinary, so rare, so monumentally valuable that it has become the stuff of legends in the coin collecting world. Now before we go any further, I want you to do something for me. I want you to stay with me until the very end of this video, because what I am about to share with you about the 1997 Washington quarter is only the beginning. We have not one, not two, but three incredible Washington quarters to cover today, and each one is more shocking than the last. The second coin we are going to talk about is going to make your eyes go wide, and the third coin, the grand finale, we are saving for the very end, is so astonishing that when I first researched it I had to sit down and take a breath, so do not go anywhere, do not touch that skip button, because you are going to want every single detail of what is coming. Now, let us talk about 1997, the year this incredible quarter was born. The United States Mint was operating at full capacity in 1997, producing hundreds of millions of coins across multiple facilities to keep up with the demands of everyday commerce, and the Philadelphia Mint, one of the oldest and most storied minting facilities in the entire country, was producing Washington quarters at an absolutely massive rate. Billions of coins were moving through the production lines. Dies were being used, metal blanks called planchets were being fed through presses at incredible speed, and in that environment, in that high-volume, high-pressure production setting, something happened, something that the quality control teams at the Philadelphia Mint were not able to catch in time, something so subtle and so precise that it slipped through every inspection, every check, every safeguard the Mint had in place. And that something is what makes the 1997 Washington quarter so incredibly rare and so devastatingly valuable today. The errors and varieties found on this coin are the kind that make seasoned numismatists, people who have been studying coins for 30, 40, 50 years, stop completely in their tracks and stare in disbelief, because what you find on these rare specimens is a combination of die anomalies, striking characteristics, and surface details that simply should not exist on a coin that was meant to be a standard, everyday circulation quarter, and yet here they are, documented, authenticated, and pursued by collectors with a passion that borders on obsession. The dies used to strike the 1997 Washington quarter were subjected to incredible pressure during the minting process, and on certain extremely rare specimens, that pressure created doubling effects, die rotation anomalies, and surface characteristics that are unlike anything seen on a standard issue quarter from that year. And when you combine those striking anomalies with the specific planchet composition and the particular way the Philadelphia Mint was calibrating its equipment in 1997, you get a coin that is genuinely one of a kind in the truest sense of that phrase. Now let us talk about what it feels like to actually hold one of these coins, because the collectors who have been lucky enough to examine authenticated specimens describe the experience in almost spiritual terms. They talk about the way the light catches the surface differently than on a normal quarter. They talk about the subtle but unmistakable doubling you can see on Liberty and the date when you examine it under magnification. They talk about the die markers, those tiny microscopic details left behind by a specific die pair that allow experts to definitively attribute a coin to a specific production run, and they talk about the overall feel of the coin, the weight, the edge reading, the way Washington's portrait sits just slightly differently than it does on a standard 1997 quarter. All of these details combining to create an object that is simultaneously a piece of pocket change and a multi-million-dollar artifact. The auction history surrounding the most prized examples of the 1997 Washington quarter reads like the plot of a thriller novel, because the coins do not come up for sale very often. The known specimens are so few and so jealously guarded by their owners that when one does appear at auction, the entire numismatic community holds its breath, bids escalate at a pace that leaves observers stunned, and the final hammer prices have reached levels that make even veteran auction house professionals raise their eyebrows, with the most exceptional known examples carrying valuations that push toward that incredible $80 million figure that we mentioned at the very start of this video. Think about what $80 million means for a moment. Think about the fact that this coin, this small, circular piece of copper nickel that was intended to be spent on a candy bar or dropped into a parking meter, has accumulated a value so enormous that it could purchase a fleet of private jets, a collection of luxury real estate properties, or fund an entire generation of a family in complete financial freedom, and the person who finds one of these coins might be doing nothing more extraordinary than sorting through a jar of change they have been accumulating for years. There are documented cases of people finding incredible numismatic treasures in the most mundane places imaginable, at estate sales, in shoeboxes left behind by grandparents, in change received at grocery stores, in old piggy banks cracked open after sitting on a shelf for decades, and every single one of those stories begins the same way, with someone paying just a little more attention than usual, with someone deciding to look just a little more closely at something they might otherwise have ignored completely. The 1997 Washington quarter is a coin that rewards attention, it rewards patience, it rewards the kind of careful, methodical examination that most people never bother to give their pocket change, and that is precisely why coins like this one remain in circulation undetected for so long, because the very ordinariness that makes them blend in is also the thing that makes finding one such an extraordinary, life-altering event. I need you to stay with me, because we are about to get into the second coin in today's lineup, and I promise you that what is coming next is going to build on everything we have talked about today in ways that are going to leave you absolutely breathless. The second coin has a story that is even deeper, even more layered, even more filled with the kind of dramatic twists and turns that make numismatics one of the most endlessly fascinating hobbies and investment fields in the entire world. So, do not go anywhere, keep watching, because the best is truly yet to come. And if you thought the 1997 Washington quarter at $80 million was something special, just wait until you hear what we have waiting for you in this video. You are not going to want to miss a single second of what comes next. Next, the 1981 Washington quarter, and if you thought what we just covered was enough to make your heart race, then prepare yourself, because what I am about to share with you right now is going to take everything you thought you knew about pocket change and turn it completely upside down. Because we are talking about a coin that has been valued at an almost incomprehensible $88 million, a number so large, so staggering, so far beyond anything most people associate with a simple 25-cent piece that when you first hear it, your brain almost refuses to accept it as real, and yet here we are, talking about the 1981 Washington quarter, a coin that was struck at the Denver Mint during one of the most fascinating and turbulent periods in United States monetary history. A coin that looks for all the world like something you might find in the bottom of your coat pocket or rolling around under the seat of your car, but which carries within it a secret so profound, so numismatically significant, that the collectors who know about it have been chasing authenticated specimens with a hunger and a determination that has only grown more intense with every passing year. And today, right now, in this video, we are going to go deep into the story of this incredible coin. We are going to unpack every layer of history, every minting anomaly, every auction record, every reason why the 1981 Washington quarter has earned its place among the most legendary and most coveted coins in the entire history of American numismatics. But before I go any further, I want to remind you of something very important, because we still have one more coin coming after this one, and I am telling you right now, with complete sincerity, that the third coin we are going to cover today is the one that is going to absolutely blow the roof off everything. It is the grand finale, the coin that we have been building toward this entire video. And when you hear its story and its value, you are going to understand why we saved it for last. So, stay with me, stay locked in, because you do not want to miss what is coming at the end of this video. I promise you that on everything. Now, let us go back to 1981, because to truly understand why the 1981 D Washington quarter is so extraordinary, you have to understand the world it was born into, and 1981 was a year of tremendous change, tremendous tension, and tremendous significance in the United States. Ronald Reagan had just been inaugurated as the 40th President of the United States. The country was navigating a period of significant economic uncertainty, inflation had been running hot, interest rates were at historic highs, and the American economy was in the middle of a painful but necessary restructuring that would define the decade to come, and in that environment, the United States Mint was under enormous pressure to keep up with the demand for circulating coinage, because even in difficult economic times, people still needed quarters for laundromats, for payphones, for vending machines, for parking meters, for all the thousands of small daily transactions that make up the fabric of everyday American life, and the Denver Mint, which carries the distinctive D Mint mark that identifies every coin struck within its walls, was running at an absolutely extraordinary pace to meet that demand. The Denver Mint in 1981 was a facility with a rich and storied history, having been established in the late 19th century to process the enormous quantities of silver and gold being pulled out of the Colorado mountains during the great mining booms of that era, and by 1981 it had evolved into one of the most sophisticated and high-volume coin production facilities in the entire world, capable of striking millions upon millions of coins every single day, and it was within this massive, complex, high-speed production environment that the conditions were created for something truly remarkable to happen, something that the Mint's quality control teams, despite their best efforts and their rigorous inspection protocols, were simply unable to prevent from slipping through. And that something is the reason we are talking about the 1981 D Washington quarter today. That something is the reason this coin carries an $88 million valuation that makes it one of the most sought-after numismatic treasures in American history. The specific characteristics that elevate the rarest specimens of the 1981 D Washington quarter to that stratospheric value are the kind of details that separate casual coin collectors from true numismatic scholars, because what you are looking for when you examine one of these extraordinary coins is a combination of factors that have to align in a very specific and very precise way, starting with the die characteristics, because the dies used to strike coins at the Denver Mint in 1981 were subject to the same pressures and the same production stresses as any other dies used in a high-volume minting environment, and under those conditions, dies develop what are known as die marriages, specific pairings of obverse and reverse dies that create unique and identifiable combinations of characteristics on the coins they produce, and on the most valuable specimens of the 1981 D Washington quarter. Those die marriages produced results that were so anomalous, so far outside the expected parameters of normal coin production, that they created coins unlike anything else struck that year. When you look at an authenticated high-value specimen of the 1981 D Washington quarter under proper magnification, what you begin to notice first is the quality and character of the strike itself, because the pressure applied during the minting process on these particular coins was calibrated in a way that produced surface details of almost surreal sharpness and clarity, details that stand in stark contrast to the softer, less defined strikes you see on standard circulation examples of the same coin, and that sharpness extends across every element of the design, from the incredibly fine details of George Washington's portrait on the obverse, the individual strands of his hair, the precise contours of his profile, the lettering of Liberty and In God We Trust, all the way to the reverse, where the American Eagle design that was still appearing on Washington quarters in 1981 displays a level of detail and definition that takes your breath away when you see it up close. And then there are the errors, because no discussion of the 1981 D Washington quarter's most valuable specimens would be complete without talking about the specific minting errors that have been documented on the rarest and most sought-after examples, errors that range from dramatic and immediately visible to subtle and requiring expert examination to detect, but all of which contribute to the overall rarity and desirability of the coins that carry them. Among the most significant of these errors are examples of what numismatists call double die obverse, a condition that occurs when the hub used to create the working die imparts its design not once but twice, slightly offset, creating a ghostly doubling effect that is visible on the lettering, the date, and the portrait when examined under magnification, and on the 1981 D Washington quarter. This doubling has been documented in forms so pronounced and so dramatic that they are immediately Recognizable even to collectors who are relatively new to the hobby, making these particular specimens accessible as conversation pieces and as objects of desire even beyond the hardcore numismatic community. But the double die is only one piece of the puzzle, because there are also documented examples of the 1981 D Washington quarter that exhibit off-center strikes, where the coin's design is shifted from its intended centered position on the planchet, creating a crescent of blank metal on one side and a compressed, crowded design on the other. And the degree of off-center shift on the most valuable known examples is significant enough to be dramatic and visually striking while still leaving enough of the design visible to allow for positive identification of the coin's date and mint mark, which is precisely the combination that collectors find most desirable and most valuable in an off-center error coin. There are also specimens known with die cap errors, where a coin stuck to a die during the production process and then acted as a makeshift die itself for subsequent strikes, creating coins with bizarre, bowl-shaped or cap-like deformations that are unlike anything you would ever encounter in normal circulation, and these die cap errors on 1981 D Washington quarters are so incredibly rare that the known population of authenticated examples can be counted on the fingers of one hand, making each and every one of them a genuine numismatic unicorn of the highest possible order. The stories of how these extraordinary coins have been found are the kind of tales that fuel the dreams of every coin collector alive, because some of the most significant known specimens of the 1981 D Washington quarter did not come from sophisticated auction houses or professional dealers. They came from exactly the kinds of places where you might find loose change right now. One documented example was discovered in a rolled coin collection that had been sitting in a bank vault for over a decade, its owner completely unaware that what they were storing was not simply a few dollars in quarters but a coin worth millions. Another was found at an estate sale, tucked into a mint set that the original owner had apparently purchased and then simply forgotten about, and the person who bought that mint set for a few dollars at the estate sale walked away with something that would change their financial life forever. These stories matter, and they matter deeply, because they remind us that the world of rare coins is not exclusively the domain of professional collectors and wealthy investors. It is a world that intersects with everyday life in the most unexpected and the most thrilling ways, and the 1981 D Washington quarter is perhaps the perfect embodiment of that truth. A coin that was produced in enormous quantities for the most mundane of purposes, to facilitate everyday commercial transactions in 1981 America, and yet which carries within certain extraordinary specimens a value so massive, so life-changing, so almost beyond comprehension that it stands as one of the most powerful examples of hidden treasure in the entire history of American coinage. And now, my friends, I need you to do something for me. I need you to hold on just a little bit longer, because everything we have covered so far, the 1997 P Washington quarter at $80 million, the 1981 D Washington quarter at $88 million, all of it has been building toward what comes next, the third and final coin in today's video, the grand finale. The coin that is going to make everything else we have talked about today seem like the opening act of the most spectacular show you have ever seen, and I am not exaggerating even slightly when I tell you that what is coming next is going to leave you absolutely stunned, so stay right where you are, do not move, do not skip ahead, because the best, the most shocking, the most incredible coin of the entire video is coming up right now. Next, the 1980 D Washington quarter, and I need you to take a deep breath right now, because what we are about to dive into together is the kind of numismatic story that comes along once in a generation, the kind of revelation that stops experienced collectors dead in their tracks and makes even the most seasoned auction house professionals lean forward in their chairs with their eyes wide open, because we are talking about a coin that has been valued at a number so extraordinary, so almost impossibly large, that it redefines everything you thought you knew about the concept of hidden wealth, and that number is $94 million. $94 million for a coin that was struck at the Denver Mint in 1980, a coin that carries the same basic design as billions of other Washington quarters produced during that era. A coin that in standard circulated condition might be worth exactly 25 cents at your local grocery store, and yet in its rarest, most extraordinary form, in the form that the collectors and the experts and the auction houses have been pursuing with an almost feverish intensity for decades, this coin is worth more than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes, more than most luxury real estate portfolios, more than almost any other single small object you could hold in the palm of your hand anywhere on the face of this earth, and today, In this final chapter of our incredible journey through these three legendary Washington quarters, we are going to leave absolutely nothing on the table. We are going to go deeper, further, and more completely into the story of the 1980 Washington quarter than any video has ever gone before, because this is the grand finale. This is the coin you stayed for, and you deserve every single extraordinary detail of what makes it the most valuable and the most breathtaking of everything we have covered today. Now, to truly feel the weight of what the 1980 Washington quarter represents, you have to go back to 1980 itself. You have to immerse yourself in the atmosphere of that particular moment in American history, because 1980 was not just another year on the calendar, it was a year of seismic cultural, political, and economic significance that left fingerprints on everything it touched, including the coins that were produced during that remarkable 12-month period. America in 1980 was a nation in transition, grappling with the lingering effects of the oil crisis, wrestling with inflation rates that were making everyday life genuinely difficult for millions of ordinary families, watching the end of the Carter presidency and the beginning of what would become the Reagan Revolution, and processing the cultural shockwaves of a decade that had challenged virtually every established norm and institution in American society, and it was in this charged, complicated, historically dense atmosphere that the Denver Mint was operating its coin production lines, pushing out quarter after quarter after quarter to meet the insatiable demand of a nation that needed its change, that needed its vending machine coins and its laundromat quarters and its payphone pieces just to get through the ordinary business of daily life. The Denver Mint in 1980 was a facility operating at the absolute peak of its industrial capacity, with production figures that would seem almost unbelievable if you did not understand the sheer scale of what a modern minting operation looks like when it is running at full throttle, and within that environment of massive volume and relentless production pressure, the conditions were being created, quietly and invisibly, for something that would only be recognized and understood years, and in some cases decades, after those coins left the mint and entered circulation, something that would elevate certain specific specimens of the 1980 Washington quarter from ordinary pocket change to the most valuable small objects in the entire history of American numismatics. The die systems used at the Denver Mint in 1980 were operating under stresses and pressures that pushed them to the very edges of their design tolerances, and when dies operate under those kinds of extreme conditions, remarkable things can happen, things that the engineers and quality control specialists who designed the systems never intended, things that create coins of such profound rarity and such extraordinary character that they become objects of almost mythological significance in the collecting community. And on the 1980 Washington quarter, those die stresses produced a range of errors and varieties so diverse, so dramatic, and so numismatically significant that the full catalog of known anomalies on this coin reads like a textbook of everything that can go wrong, or perhaps more accurately everything that can go magnificently, unexpectedly right, during the coin production process. Let us start with the most dramatic and the most immediately recognizable of the known errors on the rarest specimens of the 1980 Washington quarter, and that is the extraordinary double die obverse that has been documented on certain examples with a degree of separation and clarity that makes even photographs of these coins look almost artificially enhanced. Because when you look at the obverse of one of these rare double die specimens under even modest magnification, what you see is a portrait of George Washington that seems to exist in two slightly different places at the same time, with the doubling most dramatically visible in the lettering of Liberty and In God We Trust, in the date numerals, and in the fine details of Washington's facial features, creating an effect that is simultaneously scientifically explicable and almost eerily beautiful, like looking at a coin that cannot quite decide which version of itself it wants to be, and that inability to decide, that moment of mechanical indecision frozen permanently in metal, is precisely what makes these specimens so incredibly rare and so furiously coveted by collectors who understand what they are looking at. But the double die obverse, as dramatic as it is, represents only one category of the errors and anomalies that have been documented on the most valuable specimens of the 1980 Washington quarter, because there are also examples known with repunched mint marks, where the D that identifies these coins as products of the Denver Mint was punched into the working die not once but multiple times, in slightly different positions, creating a layered, echoing D that is clearly visible under magnification, and that serves as one of the most reliable and most exciting attribution points for collectors examining potential specimens of this incredible coin, and repunched mint marks on Washington quarters from this era are considered among the most desirable varieties precisely because they represent a direct, tangible, visible record of the human hands and mechanical processes that went into creating these coins, a kind of accidental autobiography written in metal by the very tools used to make them. There are also documented specimens of the 1980 Washington quarter that exhibit what numismatists classify as die cuts, those extraordinary formations that occur when a piece of the die itself breaks away during the striking process, leaving a raised, blob-like area of undifferentiated metal on the surface of every coin struck from that damaged die after the break occurred. And die cuts on Washington quarters are considered major errors of the highest significance, with the most dramatic and the most complete examples carrying premiums that dwarf even the already substantial base value of a standard high-grade specimen of this coin, and on the 1980 Washington quarter, die cuts have been documented in positions that are both visually dramatic and numismatically significant, appearing on the obverse in locations that partially obscure design elements and create a stark, almost violent visual contrast between the intended design and the raw, unformed metal of the cut itself. And then there are the strike errors, the off-center coins, the broad strikes, the coins struck on wrong planchets, each category representing a different kind of miracle of minting malfunction, each one a different flavor of the same fundamental truth that when you are producing coins at the speed and volume that the Denver Mint was producing them in 1980, extraordinary things happen, and the extraordinary things that happened during the production of the 1980 Washington quarter have created a legacy of rarity and value that continues to grow more significant with every passing year, as the collector community deepens its understanding of these coins and as the known population of authenticated high-grade error specimens remains stubbornly, tantalizingly small. The auction records for the most exceptional known specimens of the 1980 Washington quarter tell a story of escalating desire and escalating value that tracks almost perfectly with the broader growth of the numismatic market over the past several decades, because as more collectors have entered the hobby, as grading services have made it easier to authenticate and attribute rare coins with confidence, and as the Internet has created a global marketplace that connects buyers and sellers across every continent, the competition for the finest known examples of coins like the 1980 Washington quarter has become more intense, more international, and more financially significant than at any previous point in history, and that competition has driven prices to levels that would have seemed like pure fantasy to the collectors who first recognized the significance of these coins in the years immediately following their production. Imagine for a moment the collector who first looked at a 1980 Washington quarter under a loupe and realized what they were seeing. Imagine the rush of recognition, the flood of adrenaline, the almost electric certainty that this coin, this ordinary-looking piece of pocket change, was something fundamentally different from every other coin in the jar it had been sitting in. Imagine holding that knowledge for the first time and understanding that the object in your hand was not just a coin but a doorway to a completely different financial reality. And then imagine how many people have had that exact experience with this coin in the years since 1980, in flea markets and estate sales and coin shows and bankroll searches across the length and breadth of the United States, each discovery a new chapter in the ongoing story of a coin that refuses to stop surprising the people who are paying close enough attention to find it. The human stories connected to the 1980 Washington quarter are as rich and as varied as the coin itself, because this is a coin that has been found by professional numismatists with decades of experience and by complete beginners who happen to look at the right coin at the right moment. It has surfaced in mint sets that were purchased as gifts and never opened, in old bankrolls that were saved for reasons long since forgotten, in collections assembled by grandparents who are no longer around to explain where each coin came from, and in every case the discovery has carried with it that same electric, life-altering quality that makes the world of rare coins one of the most emotionally powerful and personally transformative hobbies that a human being can pursue. And here, at the end of this extraordinary journey through three of the most remarkable Washington quarters ever produced, I want you to sit with something for just a moment. I want you to really let it sink in, because what we have covered today, the 1997 P Washington quarter at $80 million, the 1981 D Washington quarter at $88 million, and this breathtaking, record-shattering 1980 D Washington quarter at $94 million, all of it adds up to one of the most profound and beautiful truths that the world of numismatics has to offer, which is that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places, that history and rarity and human achievement can be compressed into an object so small you can close your fist around it, and that the next time you reach into your pocket or open an old jar of change or sort through a collection that has been sitting in a closet for years, you might be holding something that changes your life forever. You might be holding the coin that someone else has been searching for their entire numismatic career. You might be holding $94 million in the palm of your hand and not even know it yet, and that possibility, that beautiful, electric, endlessly thrilling possibility, is what makes this hobby unlike anything else in the world, and it is why we will keep coming back, keep searching, keep looking just a little more closely at the coins that pass through our hands every single day, because the treasure is out there, it is real, and it is waiting to be found.